All right. Hello. Um, let's see if anyone joins us today. That's okay either way, and I will explain that in a moment. This is a bit of an experiment I'm doing, mostly for practice and doing some experiments and things. But really, what I'm sharing with anyone who watches this video or the recording, either live or later on, is I'm sharing what the onboarding experience is like while signing up for different tools that I'm evaluating as a solution to something I want to use in my own projects. Really, this show and my observations about it are really focusing on this notion of developer experience, the art and science of building tools that developers want to use. With that in mind, I'm basically just saying, hey, there's a new tool I've heard of. I want to get started with it. So let's go. Let's just see what happens. Sometimes I'm familiar with some of the tools that I'm choosing. Sometimes I don't know anything about it at all. It's hit or miss or what ends up happening here. But let's just give a little bit more background as well. By way of introduction, my name is Jason. And I do work in the developer experience space, so have built as a tech lead client SDKs, both web applications, Python applications, across a lot of different fields. In the spirit of what I'm doing, as I am looking at a new tool and I am offering my perspective of what the onboarding experience is like and what's working and what is not working. With that in mind, I do want to remind of a code of conduct in case anyone does jump in to the chat and offers any comments. This is a reminder. I myself am trying to be kind. Building something with a very good developer experience is hard work. With the spirit being a little bit more growth oriented, I do want to point out the things that are being done really well because I want to mirror those in anything I'm working on building. But I may, in some cases, also observe things that aren't as effective. And this is not to be belittle any of the efforts. It's just sort of it's hard and it's a moving target. Things are constantly in flux, and so being able to actually run water through a system and go end to end trying to sign up is not something that a lot of companies devote. It's not like that's a thing you do every week. So entropy tends to sneak in, and I may run into some of those things as a result of this. In terms of the format of this and a little bit of background, there is sort of this marketing communications kind of strategy of you only have 3 seconds to really make an impression, 30 seconds to get your message across and convince somebody of something. And this was taken from an API Days talk and also made into a way of providing a litmus test for developer experience as well. And I've heard a few others in the community echo this idea of you have really 3 seconds to get the point across about what an API is for, 30 seconds for somebody to find that entry point, and 3 minutes to sign up for an account and actually get to hello world. It's a KPI, time to hello world. And I think 3 minutes is a little unreasonable. I tend to go a little bit longer than that. So I think, you'll see maybe the first half hour or so of me signing up. I do tend to continue on using the APIs and come up with a much more fuller picture about what the onboarding experience is. But this first 30 minutes is roughly the unscripted, here's what happens when I actually sign up. And the reason I'm doing it this way is there is this notion of customer zero, so that while in this instance I maybe am a potential customer for any of the products I'm looking at, if I'm building something, I'm often looking for customer zero or asking folks who don't directly contribute to building something to try it out before an actual customer comes along. Because I might sign up for something here, have a really negative impression, and I may not end up using it. I may decide, hey, this is just not going to meet my needs. I had to spend too much time trying to figure out how it worked. And with that in mind, even though I might be considered a senior engineer, and having a lot of experience in the industry, I am using tools for the very first time. And so I think I am admitting that it is okay to not know something, because we all don't know something. It's just because I'm an expert in one domain does not mean I know anything about another domain. Just because I'm very proficient with one particular tool does not mean I'm proficient with another. So all of this is to say that I am trying to, throw real world scenarios at something when I do these types of evaluations, and the art of building something. So, uh, the other way of capturing these results is something that's often referred to as a friction log. So I do have done this process in the past where I literally would take dutiful screenshots and copy error messages anytime I was experiencing problems, right? And this is not the same as QC, right? This is not just saying like, oh, it blew up and it didn't work, because obviously those are the types of things you obviously need to fix. This is really about the things that are maybe slow somebody down from having that feel good feeling, frustration, complexity, um, just confusion, right? Like those are emotions you don't want to have in a product, any sort of product, and technical products are no different in that regard. So one of the things that I've evolved is that, while taking screenshots and error messages is fine, that does take you out of the process of doing it. And I think about this from like past human factors user experience design type studies, where you maybe put a paper prototype in front of someone and have them go through and ask them questions. This is a little bit more free form. What I started doing is actually just scheduling time, saying like, hey, can you be a guinea pig? I'm going to schedule an hour, because then that person knows it's not like a task that goes on their list and it might be 8 hours or whatever. It constrains it, it time boxes it, and then record it. Because then instead of spending any time trying to capture what the observation is, or try to make note of what those reproduction steps were, the video will actually have, ideally, a view into what the steps were that led up to a particular error or what the observation was. So then it becomes something that can be leveraged for learning resources or reproduction steps or whatever the case may be. So with all that in mind, I am doing this rather sporadically. When I say, hey, I have a little bit of extra mental bandwidth, I need to go try a new tool, see how it works. When that happens, I'm trying to, just kind of stay with the theme and go ahead and say like, hey, roughly around 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, my local time, that's the time I'm allocating to say, hey, I'm going to go work with some new tool, technology, API, something. I am sending this out to both Twitch and YouTube in case you have a preference one way or the other. Maybe I'll expand that out to do LinkedIn Live as well very soon. But generally, I'm trying to keep developerxp.com up to date with what the ones I'm evaluating are, just in case you have any interest in one particular product or another, or have something that you can give me some advice as I'm trying to onboard. I think that's okay as well, in this format. So today I'm going to be looking at auth0, and then later this week I have actually for a almost more like nonprofit community group, a project I'm working on. I'm actually going to try to use GitHub Copilot to build it on Friday, so it'll be a little bit of a longer session, just to see, because I haven't used Copilot yet. I've heard the headlines, haven't used it yet. And for one of the projects I'm working on, I do need or evaluating different CMS solutions. So Have Sanity on the list is one that I've heard of, haven't used, so just to go see what it's all about. So with that out of the way, I am going to start with auth0. So I'm going to go ahead. Hopefully, if I make this a little bit bigger, you'll be able to see it okay. And if not, well, what are you going to do? You can zoom in as far as I can go. So hopefully that'll work for you. So auth0 is, I evaluate technology almost always. I'm going to start by searching, sometimes just because it may not be intuitive if it's auth0.com or whatever. I've heard about auth0 for years, even before, I believe last I heard Okta had acquired them, right? That's what it seems to be telling me here. but I've never used it. I actually know, to that point, I don't do a whole lot of user authentication. That's just not a on the security side of things. It's not a thing I've had to do. I don't know a whole lot about that space, so um, I want to use a third party tool to solve it for me if possible. But the search I always find to be very helpful for a couple reasons, and it's something that if you work on something you should probably do very often too. Is well, right off the bat, hey, I have never heard of Stitch, but apparently they're in the same space as well, and so this is a good way to surface some competitors who are maybe paying for AdWords and sort of placement against competitors. So maybe I have to add Stitch to my list of products to evaluate or solutions to check out. But Auth0, it looks like Okta pre-built authentication. I don't know if that's where I want to go, or if I want to start here with Auth0, get started. That seems appropriate to me. And it's sponsored, which suggests this is where they think I should start, as opposed to going in the front door, the home page. So let's go ahead and do that. And I think there is this sort of okay. I don't. Why is there a quiz? I don't know. So there is this sort of myth that people will come in through the front door and start at whatever.com and making an assumption that somebody's read everything in the past, which is almost never really the case. So I followed a link that happened to be very early in the search results. That's how I ended up here. Secure access for developers, but not attackers. Da 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 da. Okay. In terms of orientation, this again confirms Okta has it as well in any application in just 5 minutes. As I said, 3 minutes was one target. 5 minutes is often cited as well. I think I always have a little bit of skepticism at the idea that 5 minutes would be all I need. But this does maybe tell me log in with redirect. And that's it. So maybe the SDK, they have a client SDK that handles most of it for me, which would be nice, right? That's why I say I don't really want to think about any of this. Um, um, I just want to provide, something so that I can manage how many users I have, allow them to sign up, and so on. So, okay. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, let's discuss needs. Our sales team will provide feedback based on your requirements so we can set your company up for success. I don't want to talk to sales. Let's go back. Now, why don't I want to talk to sales? I'm sure they're generally great folks, but I haven't decided which solution I want to use yet. I don't know if I'm going to use Auth0. I don't know if I'm going to use one of the alternatives. So the idea of me scheduling 30 minutes when I was hoping to spend less than that doing an evaluation, partly because a salesperson might, help streamline providing some information they think I need. They certainly can answer any questions I have, I would hope. But I don't necessarily know what questions I have yet. I want to explore. I'm not going to know until I've actually started building. Then I'll probably want to talk to someone, because then I'll be a little bit more informed of okay, now that I've experimented with it a little bit. And maybe that's just the way I work. I don't necessarily always sit down and write out and itemize my requirements and think through the entire design. I do on certain projects, I suppose, but here, I know I need to be able to have people sign up. I want to authenticate them. I know I need, to know their name, email address. Ideally, maybe we store passwords, or maybe it is just kicks off, the login links to their email or phone or something like that. Providing two-factor verification. I mean, there are some things I could say, off the bat, those are probably things I want. I'm going to assume Auth0 supports those things. Um, but I don't have a question. Like, I don't feel like I need to talk to sales to find that out. I need to start building and then figuring out, hey, did now I have questions and can you help me? Right? I'm not here to talk about pricing or budget or all those things because I'm trying to bootstrap a project right now. Or if I was an engineer at a corporation, maybe my task is to evaluate a couple of different alternatives. I'm not going to go talk to sales because I don't have the budget. My objective was to make a recommendation of one of three as to which one will meet our requirements, if I have identified them. So in a lot of those scenarios, I'm not ready to talk to somebody yet. I want to kind of get a feel like, hey, is this well documented? Does it feel well supported? Is it easy to use? Does the SDK look clean? Did I run into any problems? Can I figure out the dashboard? How does user management work? What are the key concepts? Those are all the types of things that I want to get a sense of myself, as well. Sometimes, if I do a search, I'm going to look for a third party recommendation, as well, because again, anyone who's in sales or works for Auth0, they're of course going to tell me there are no better alternatives and so on, and they may very well be right. It's just that there's a credibility issue because that whether they mean it or not, that's what they're going to say, just based on their position. So, um, anyways, well, what if I go this way? Sign up. Okay, start building with your free plan. No credit card required. Now I'm not talking to sales. That's interesting to me to a certain extent that I ended up on this getting started page, and I if I put in my work email and get started down here, I ended up with this like, oh, now I have to talk to sales. Is it the same thing here? If I do, just to confirm. Yeah, so that's taking me down a sales pipeline, whereas over, sorry, I keep moving away from this page. Um, Over here, if I click sign up, I get to what I think I want, which is actually a little bit of a streamlined. I just want to self-service and create my own account. Okay, so that's better. So I'm gonna generate a password in my password manager. Just 1 second. That seems sufficient. Okay, good. I don't, this is just my process as well. I never tend to use a third party like Gmail or whatever to manage my passwords. But other people do. And so it is, I'm going to assume that this creating of an account is using something like Auth0 as well. So this might give me a feel for what I'm getting and what I can build into my application. So, are you creating this about a company or other? I'm going to say other. It's more, individual projects. We've assigned your data region to the United States and given you a tenant. If I need to do a different region with different privacy, United States is fine. So I don't need to change that. Okay. Okay. That sign up process took a little bit there. A few small steps for you, one massive leap for your login box. I don't, okay. I'm going to ignore that. Tell us about you and we can recommend the next steps. I am a new user. This is true. I have used it before. That is incorrect. I am a new user. Okay. So it sounds like I've got a get started sequence. I haven't read any docs yet. I haven't looked at pricing yet or any of those things. So I've probably gotten a little bit ahead of myself. And maybe I back out for a second and just go take a look. pricing does matter to a certain extent because right now I'm building a proof of concept and or evaluating whether or not this is an option I should be considering. So I can use it for free with up to 7,500 active users and unlimited logins, no credit card required. This is very clearly explained and helpful. I don't know, you know, like if I were making this decision, is 7,500 the right number or not? It's interesting to know how they maybe reached that point. You know, if I'm working on a project, like if I were to use Auth0 for like everyone at my company, that sounds like I could use it for free. I don't want to do that, um, but in terms of growth and everything, it's good to know that I have a little bit of room to actually make sure everything's working properly, then start getting people to use my service and move on. Since I don't have something that's launched yet, um, it'd be a very different process if I already had an authentication system or a sign up form and I needed to migrate over. Um, but otherwise, for basic projects, small applications, 35 a month. Um, at what point do I tip into that? Well, anyway, it seems I answered my question, which is I'm not concerned about pricing right now. In terms of orientation, this menu, developers, documentation, product, solutions pricing does put developers first, which makes sense for me as well, anyway. But I've got a developer center, I've got some code samples, guides, videos, um, GWTIO, SAML tool. It's interesting that it has linked to this. Are these like sponsored by Auth0? Yeah, I guess so. I think I may have used that many, many years ago. Just forgot about it. On the documentation side, so it's interesting that support falls under documentation here, but that's fine, as well as the blog. Is this a specific Auth0 blog or yeah, I don't know. Okay, it's not a whole lot I need there. Okay, so maybe I'll go ahead and go back here. I'm a new user. Let's see what this guide will help me do. If the guide gets me to a place instead of me reading, a tutorial, that's kind of a nice place to be, honestly. Um, I haven't really set my timer. I guess that's why I record because I can kind of go back and be like, hey, within 3 minutes was I able to create an account from when I started and so on. But let's see, select a platform. Uh, Probably a little bit more um, traditional web app. I do have a back end. Um, um, Actually, on my project, I've been using Svelte and Svelte Kit. So that's not showing here. But I think Express is probably close enough um, in terms of default auth0. Just configure your login box. Default auth0 for now is fine. I'm not trying to do that. Social connections. So I am developer facing, so maybe I just do these three. Okay, and see this, I guess that gives you the option of doing one way or another. User ID, choose if users can authenticate using ID and password. What happens if I don't? Does that mean like a magic link versus email password or I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and leave that enabled. I'm not looking to customize the look and feel of this quite yet. Let's see what it does. Try login as a real user. Okay, welcome. Log into this to continue the default app. I don't have an account, so sign up. Oops. Sure. Okay. Um, okay, so I've done that. So it seems that everything worked with that. So what is so I can download a sample app and then use it. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll try running it in a second. Okay. Um, okay, so I downloaded that. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to VS Code. Okay. Seems simple enough. So if I go into this, I'm going to source my environment. So I'm guessing that since it built it for me, it's already got my API keys and things like that. Um, Set the allowed callback URLs in the application settings. What does that mean? Okay. So I think it's saying I should be able to come here, do that, and allowed logout URLs for now. Okay. So I guess is there a save button here? I didn't really, this default app, I kind of skimmed very quickly. I didn't look at it in much detail. Npm install and start. Okay. Let's go ahead, do that. Uh-oh. So I'm using Node version 20. Issuer base URL must be a valid URI. Okay, so let's see what I can find out from that. Um, my config somewhere. So, I remember I've had long conversations with internal developer experience teams around this notion of these like app builders and things like that. Um, I think it's really slick and magical when it works, but there's so many variables. I'm sure this is working somewhere else just fine. Maybe I go ahead and try running it in a Docker environment. And I think that's a nice way to try to get around this. It worked on my machine when we deployed it, but given that there's all kinds of updates and things like that. So what is that? It wants me to run an exec shell. Where is that? And what does it do? I'm not going to run it until I know what it does. Doesn't seem like there's one here anyway. So I do. Um, maybe. Well, but there was a .env, right? Yeah. So it's not that I need to rename this .env. Client ID. So that's, again, I'm assuming those are there. But it seems like this README might be a little bit dated, or in the sense that like this step is already done for me. I ran npm start, right? That was, and that was what was generated. What was the error again? Issuer base URL. Okay. Well, this did not get me up within 5 minutes, unfortunately. But it does suggest that, it's possible. I mean, it presumably deployed this somewhere and it was working just fine. I'll just say I'm ready. Let's see. Getting started. Probably the 4-step guide to getting started. Well, actually, and here's another thing I want to do. So let me explore the dashboard just a little bit. So it suggests to me this is probably my app. It's a dev environment. Maybe I can invite other people once I have a team, which I don't at this point. That's fine. Activity. So when I went to that, maybe it was in settings. Yeah. So this is where. So what I'm trying to figure out. So like when I was adding those custom settings for like the callback URL, um, I don't remember where I was in the dashboard. I wasn't paying attention to that. Was it in here? Yeah, okay. So default app within the settings. And then there's quick starts. Well, a couple of things here. I can see my client ID in secret, application properties, login URL, callback, logout URL. Token, advanced settings. Okay, and then I can delete. So sorry, user management. Maybe this is what I'm trying to see. Okay, so I was able to log in and create this account. And I know I didn't do myself any favors by using the same email address, but so hold on a sec. So maybe real quick, I'm gonna move off screen here to check my email and see how many verification emails I got. So I did get my verifying my account. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that was the verification for auth0. But I did also get, here, I'm sorry, I'll pull it over so you can see as well. So this is my default app where I signed up. Gives me a verify link to verify the account. So if I click on that, oh, interesting. I got a error message there too. Your email address could not be verified. Why not? Okay. Maybe um, this user has not created a passkey. I did though. Well, wait, no, I created a login and a password. But this says I'm verified. Um, Maybe I need to try this again. Can I? If I go back to that app that allowed me. Uh, so I downloaded the code of that tutorial I went through, but the code I downloaded worked. For a while, it was running here, but I'm not sure how to get back to that again to try that login one more time. And then this user management, and this is again my own fault, perhaps. It's unclear to me whether this is like my auth0 account or this is the one that is part of this. I should have done like a plus test or something like that. Um, what is, but now I can't get back to the app that was running in probably, some temporary environment just so I can test things out. So I'll just continue to explore this dashboard. In terms of things that I would care about, this is a good example where I will want to know how many users I have signing up, how many are active, although successful authentication activity. If I set my refresh token, like if it's presumably refreshing or triggering at least a verification every day, then I can see who's using the app every day, which is what I want to know. Users retention and signups, failed logins, those are all useful um, things I'll be wanting to. Now, applications. This is my default app. Can I? Hmm. Okay. Well, there's definitely a lot of functionality here. I'm just kind of monkeying around though. All right. So I feel like this was supposed to get me to a hello world, and I think I did, but that is always the risk of the quick hello world is okay, well, now that I got that, now I want to, you have a bundle of code. I could debug this, but generally that's not what I want to do. I want to go to my Svelte app and integrate it myself. And I'm not using Express, I'm using Svelte Kit. Um, and on the front end, I'm not doing anything using this stack. So even though I got this bundle, the only thing it really helps me with is a little bit of sample code, right? That in theory, what I want to be able to see is how does it work for requiring authentication. What is it? Um, well, if I look at, I'm curious about, so I'm interested in, I'm not sure. So one of the things right off the bat I was expecting was an auth0 library or client SDK. And I think this surprised me. It surprised me just a bit here already, where it's using an OpenID connection, maybe, in terms of how this actually is working. Um, Meaning it's using the open standard. It just happens to be that the identity provider is auth0 behind the scenes. Um, and maybe this is hinting that I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be useful. Um, so that suggests, some of the areas that might be configured incorrectly here. This issuer base URL. Um, and I'm curious. I'm gonna open a new terminal here for a second. Um, what I am curious to see is what my env says. So it does. Oh, okay. So that sort of explains things. I was anticipating magic, and see, this is why I also record the videos. It just so happens I'm doing it live while I'm at it. Um, if I come back here, here's where the problem is I was anticipating magic, but um, this magic was not part of it. I thought the online thing suggested it was, but to the so this is why the issuer base URL is not particularly helpful. So what can I do? I'm going to move that off screen for a moment. I'm going to move this off screen for a moment because I'm going to have to go get those settings. So if I go into my where is that again? If I go here to this settings here, no, I have to go to my applications, my default app. Yeah. Did I have a chance to name this? Yeah, I do. Let's change this to something else. Let's call it DX show. Sure. Okay, so I have my domain. I want to copy that. Wait, do I need? That's not. Is that my base URL? I think it is. Yes. And in the end file, it said your domain. I got my client ID. And I guess that's the other part of video is you now have my client ID as well, but you don't have my secret just yet. Presumably the client ID is probably public in the client, and then the secret is on the server, or both. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out later. Okay. So let's say I now have that configured. I can close that out and then come back over here. Okay. So let's try running it now that I have that configured. Oh, no. Oh, no. Issuer base URL must be a valid URL. Oops. Gotta fix that. Just give me a second. Okay, let's try this again. One of the things I've done with other guides and things, I don't know if it's useful or not, but like, let's just say that this was a common mistake. I'm probably not the first person that's done this. I'm guessing other people get it right, but I happened to fall into this. I didn't know how to interpret this error at first, right? Like I wasn't sure where it was coming from. Even the fact that it's coming from Express OpenID Connect, I wasn't. I didn't have the context for how this app worked yet, and nor is my objective to learn how the entire app works. And so it becomes this question of, wait, is this part of how Auth0 is configured, or is this part of something else that's just part of the demo? In either case, I think we should be set now. Okay. So let's go ahead and go back to localhost 3000. I am not logged in. Whoops, something went wrong. Huh. But why did something go wrong? Let's see. Misconfiguration in the system or a service outage. I'm going to wager this is more of a misconfiguration problem. So I've done something wrong. What did I do wrong? Invalid request, unknown client. What is unknown client? Oh. Aha. I know what that is. Figured it out. That was my client ID. My search and replace is not great. Okay, so let's source env one more time, and then we can run it again. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I can create, I want to sign up. Let's go to the sign up model. DX plus test2. I just want to generate a new one because I don't really intend to log in again. I just want to make sure I can verify I create an account. Okay, authorized app. Default app is requesting access to your account. Wait, what? I don't know. No. Maybe I should have done this in an incognito window. Now let's see what happens. All right. So, oh, okay. So now I have an account. And if I come over here to user management, users, I see this account exists. Cool. And history, successful login. Okay. Now I feel like I have a successful hello world. Now I can see that the email is still pending a verification. If I come over to my email, I see I received an email. I'm going to copy email verified. Okay, so that definitely worked. And now I can come back here and refresh. So I have to say, I mean, a couple of things here. This dashboard, I've never looked at this before, but I seem to be moving around well enough. There were a few areas that confused me, but user management, My applications getting started, this seems to follow some typical conventions, so it seems pretty well designed. There are a lot of things here that are probably advanced features I'm not familiar with yet, and that's okay. It sounds like, multi-factor authentication is a thing I can do. Um, Maybe there's user metadata I can start adding, which could be kind of helpful. Um, Pull in identity provider from Gravatar and stuff. Okay. Um, and I have also things like login counts and stuff like that. So yeah, so I mean, obviously, there's a lot more I need to do to use this in production. Like I said, my next step is probably saying, okay, now that I got the Hello World working, I want to make sure I can get a similar Hello World working with my own login form and my own Svelte app and see where I can go from there. But otherwise, it's under an hour, 50 minutes. I spent half of that talking at the beginning. So I'd say, it was a pretty reasonable onboarding experience. I got a sample. I ran into some trouble, so I had to sort of debug it on the fly. But I think in those cases, right, it was just my own mistakes. I thought the .env was already set and it wasn't. And then even when I went to set it, I tried to do a search and replace, and I missed the brackets. So that's a little bit on me. Um, okay. Yeah, I got nothing else to say about the experience so far. So, anyways, if you made it this far, great. Hope that was somewhat interesting. And I'm going to continue using this in my project and see how it goes once I do a full evaluation. So, all right. Thanks. I'm going to sign off. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks.